If you love staying at home, there is a good chance you have been misunderstood more times than you can count. People may have called you lazy, antisocial, boring, unmotivated, or disconnected from life. They may have assumed that your preference for quiet means fear, weakness, or a lack of ambition. But that assumption misses something essential about you. Because loving home is not about avoidance. It is about alignment. And if you are listening to this, I want you to know from the very beginning, you are not strange for feeling safest, clearest, and most like yourself within your own space. There is a psychology behind this preference, and it is far deeper than most people realize. To absorb noise, expectations, comparisons, and emotional demands that never seem to stop. Even when nothing is wrong, something is always required of you. At home, nothing is required, and for a certain kind of mind, that changes everything. Many people assume that those who love staying home are introverted in a simple, surface-level way, that you just don't like people. But this is rarely true. In fact, many home-loving people feel deeply, too deeply, sometimes. You notice tones, moods, subtleties. You absorb emotional energy without trying to. Psychologically, this makes overstimulation more likely. When you spend time around others, you are not just talking. You are regulating, reading the room, adjusting your expressions, managing impressions. Even silence around others can feel loud because you are still aware of how you are being perceived. At home, perception dissolves. You do not have to manage yourself. You get to be yourself. This is why your body exhales the moment you close the door behind you. Your shoulders drop, your breathing slows, your thoughts stop racing in 10 directions. It is not relief from effort, it is relief from vigilance. From a psychological perspective, people who love staying home often have highly responsive nervous systems. You process more information than you realize, not intellectually, but emotionally and sensory-wise. Noise, crowds, social ambiguity, and constant stimulation drain you faster than they drain others. This is not a flaw, it is a sensitivity. And sensitivity, when understood, becomes a strength. You don't seek chaos because you already carry depth inside you. You don't need external stimulation to feel alive, because your inner world is rich, complex, and active. Thoughts unfold, feelings move, memories surface, meaning is constructed quietly. Home gives you space to hear yourself think. Out in the world, silence is often filled with pressure. At home, silence becomes permission. Permission to slow down, permission to feel without performing. Many people chase activity because stillness scares them. When everything goes quiet, unresolved emotions surface: regret, loneliness, insecurity, questions they've avoided for years. So they stay busy, social, distracted, not because they love it, but because they fear what happens when they stop. You did the opposite. You stayed long enough in quiet to realize that stillness is not empty. It is revealing. And yes, sometimes uncomfortable, but also honest. Loving home often means you have faced yourself more than most people ever do. You have allowed emotions to rise and fall without immediately numbing them. Over time, your mind learned that safety does not come from constant connection, it comes from inner stability. That realization changes your relationship with the world. You stop chasing stimulation for its own sake. You become selective, not because you think you are better than others, but because you know your limits. You know how much input your system can handle before it tips into overwhelm, and you respect that. There is also something else beneath your love for home, something rarely spoken about: control. Not control over others, but control over your environment. When you've experienced unpredictability, emotional inconsistency, or overstimulation earlier in life, your nervous system learns to value predictability deeply. Home becomes a place where variables are minimized: lighting, noise, timing, energy. You know what to expect. That predictability feels like safety. It allows your mind to rest from constant scanning. This doesn't mean you are afraid of the world. You know that recovery matters just as much as engagement, and you refuse to live in a state of perpetual depletion. Psychologically, this is a sign of self-awareness, not withdrawal. You are not disconnected from life. You are connected to yourself, and that connection becomes more important with time. As people age, many begin to realize that constant movement does not equal fulfillment, that busyness can become a way to avoid presence, that relationships based solely on activity rather than depth often leave a hollow feeling behind. You sensed this earlier than most. At home, you don't have to compress yourself to fit social expectations. You don't have to exaggerate reactions or dilute your complexity to be palatable. You don't have to perform happiness or interest on cue. You can be neutral, thoughtful, quiet, content, and contentment. For someone like you, is not boredom, it is balance. Let me speak to you directly now. You are not missing out on life because you enjoy staying home. You are choosing a different rhythm, one that prioritizes meaning over momentum, depth over display, authenticity over availability. This choice often confuses others because modern culture rewards visibility, loudness, constant updates, proof of participation. They may assume you are lonely, but loneliness is not the same as solitude. Loneliness is the absence of connection. Solitude is the presence of self. You experience solitude not as emptiness, but as fullness, as space where your mind stretches out instead of shrinking, where your emotions have room to breathe, where you are not interrupted mid-thought by the demand to respond, react, or reassure. Home is where you metabolize life, where your identity becomes clearer instead of fragmented. People who don't enjoy being alone often assume that those who do must be suppressing something, but more often it is the opposite. You are processing something slowly, carefully, thoroughly, and that takes time. There is also an emotional maturity in choosing home that rarely gets acknowledged. You don't rely on constant external validation to feel real. You don't need an audience to confirm your existence. You can enjoy your own company without turning it into a crisis. That is not common. It takes inner security to be alone without distraction. And yes, sometimes home becomes a refuge because the world has been harsh. Maybe you've been disappointed by people, misread, overextended, emotionally drained by environments that took more than they gave. Home then becomes a boundary, not a wall, but a filter. You are not closing yourself off. You are conserving yourself. This is why, when you do choose to go out, to connect, to engage, do it intentionally. You show up fully. You listen deeply. You are present because you are not depleted from constant exposure. Your relationships, though fewer, are often richer because you don't need many connections to feel whole. You need a few that feel real. From a psychological standpoint, loving home is often associated with a strong internal locus of control. Your sense of well-being does not depend entirely on external stimulation. You generate meaning internally. You stimulate. You are comfortable with your own mind. That comfort is something you earned. It came from learning how to sit with discomfort instead of fleeing it. From discovering that peace is not something you chase, it is something you allow. At home, you allow yourself to be unproductive without guilt, to rest without justification, to exist without optimizing every moment. And in a world obsessed with efficiency, that is quietly radical. Your nervous system understands something your mind may not have words for, yet that constant engagement without recovery leads to burnout, resentment, and disconnection from self. You choose home because your body asks for it, and you listen. That listening is a form of self-respect. It's important to say this clearly. Loving home does not mean you lack courage. Often, it means you've already proven your courage in ways no one applauded. You've navigated emotional complexity. You've endured internal storms. You've grown without spectacle. Now, you choose peace, and peace, for you, is not passive. It is active maintenance of your inner world. You know that the version of you who is calm, grounded, and clear only exists when you honor your need for quiet. So you protect it, gently, firmly, without apology. If you ever feel the need to justify your preference for staying home, remember this: you are not withdrawing from life, you are engaging with it inwardly. And inward engagement shapes outward wisdom. You see things others miss. You think before you speak. You notice patterns. You reflect. You integrate. While others are rushing to the next distraction, you are digesting the present moment. That makes you deep. And depth often looks like stillness from the outside. As this settles in, I want you to hold one thought close. For craving quiet, for choosing fewer, slower, softer experiences, your nervous system is not broken, it is honest. You found a place where you can breathe, and that matters more than being everywhere, doing everything, proving anything. Home is where you remember who you are beneath the noise, and that is not a retreat. That is a return.